Never did before. That's why every day we're back for more. The backyard again. Hey y'all, I'm gonna wait for everybody to get their notifications and their pings and dings. For those of you that are new or have never been on, and for those of you that aren't, I would really like for you guys to like and share this particular live. Again, we will be covering some things that and some perspectives that maybe a lot of people may not have thought about or talked about or even discussed. I will tell you that this live will sort of be uncomfortable. It is not meant to attack anybody or give anybody false hope or false definition. It is literally just to bring situations that happen in the Black community or in all communities, but mostly the Black community or the melanated community. This is something that specifically has to deal with us considering the content of what we will be talking about today. So again, I do understand that situations and things may get a little uncomfortable. And again, this is for teaching and learning. So you guys, if anybody has any questions while we are talking or doing any of this, please feel free to ask. Feel free to ask questions. And again, I do not apologize. I do not apologize about making anybody uncomfortable with this conversation or anything that we may discuss today, because again, this was a lot of things that were brought to my attention, as well as for myself, not just for the community as a whole. But it did sort of come to the point of, well, damn, if this is what I'm seeing, noticing, and going through, I wonder how many other people are seeing, noticing, and going through the exact same thing and sort of aren't really privy or knowledgeable enough to sort of catch what's going on in their families or in their home lives or things of that nature. So, hey y'all, what prompted today's discussion, first of all, was not even a conversation. Me just doing my due diligence of my own health, my own self-care, my own awareness. I had been checking with my doctor's notes. I don't know how many of y'all actually do that, but if you do have a primary care physician, I would very, very much recommend you all go back and read the notes that your doctor may have placed in your file about you. Because at the end of the day, you may find some discrepancies in your medical history that they are making note of, but they are not making you aware of. Especially when it comes to mental trauma, mental disabilities, and anything mental. If a lot of these doctors are not diverse in psychology or knowing how the body is to operate psychologically along with physically, and again, for those of y'all that know, psychologically is your void space of nothing. And once you are seeing it in real time reality, this is now something. So you go from nothing to something. And again, if a lot of these doctors are not equipped to diagnose and heal mentally, then a lot of the times they're only seeing the problems half-assed. Hey, honey. They're not really seeing the full situation of what is occurring, with you or anybody else, because quite frankly, if you're having mental issues and you go into your primary care physician, I'm going to tell you now, your primary care physician is going to be like, oh, I can't tell you about your mental health. I'm going to put in a consult so you can go talk to them. And again, it's sort of a big block, because in the medical field, where we are thinking that these doctors are going to be looking at your medical records, they're going to be taking note of certain illnesses or certain patterns and things of that nature. That is not what they're paid to do. They are not paid to sort of keep up with that kind of stuff. So if you've been having an issue ongoing for like 10 years and you've been keeping track of it versus what the doctor is saying, I would very much highly recommend you go back and check what your doctor's notes are, because at some point in time, your doctor may have diagnosed you or misdiagnosed you because simply they were not authorized or knowledgeable to diagnose you the correct way in the first place. And it was a big question that I saw about why, how come a lot of doctors are not actually helping people heal themselves. And, you know, they're signing up in the medical field thinking that, oh, I'm going to take this oath to do no harm. And for those of us that have been in the nursing field or been in the medical field, you always know our main oath is to do no harm. Number one, do no harm. But that is the main oath that is always, always, always violated, because they're always doing some fucking harm. So this sort of prompted me on my journey to go ahead and, you know, realizing a lot of these psychological things, because yes, one of my biggest studies is psychological abuse and trauma and how it connects through the blood. So of course, I'm sitting here recognizing and taking note of a lot of my family situation and trauma and things of that nature. And something just prompted me and was like, go back through what the VA done said. Because the last time I ended up having a situation at the VA, and I was telling my doctor, hey, I've noticed these symptoms and things and stuff, and I would like to be tested just to see. And he sort of blew me off, and then he ended up with the comment of, oh, you don't look like you have this illness or sickness. Now, instantly, my mindset went to what does the illness and the sickness look like before it is actually taking form? And it further prompted me to ask my doctor, so since you say I don't look sick, does it look like I've been sexually abused? Does it look like I've been raped? Does it look like I've been molested or left for dead? Does it look like I've had 7 different soldiers invade my body without my consent and permission and the U.S. government was hiding it? Do I look like that? So again, with him in his yeah. Being the health professional, sir, you just violated my rights as an individual and also as a veteran, because at the end of the day, I did not suffer for you to sit here with an attitude of what you think you know versus the factuality that you did not read my medical notes, my history, nor that you take an accurate account of me as a person. So therefore, you just profiled me negatively. And now also these notes are in my medical records, which again are not correct. So I went and looked through my medical records after he placed the order in, or whatever the case may be. And a lot of his diagnoses from what he said. Now, mind you, he done only seen me like maybe once, 2, 3 times. And I have to say, it's dramatically off-putting. Because again, this is a primary care physician who is trying to give a mental diagnosis or a psychological diagnosis that technically he has no training in, and not realizing the background that I actually have has ultimately tried to stereotypicalize me as being just another person playing sick. So this is where I wanted to sort of come to you guys as my community and not only tell y'all, hey man, do y'all due diligence and what y'all going to these doctors for? Because again, they are not put out here to heal you. Healers are put out here to heal you. Okay? And everybody that is signing up to be a healer is starting to realize that that healing thing ain't what they saying is cracking up to be. Because technically speaking, a doctor is not paid to heal you. A doctor is paid to medicate you or put a bandage on it, which is to doctor it up. That way you can come back later. It is to doctor the bandage. It's not to heal you. It's to put a temporary stop on a permanent issue or problem. So now this further piques my interest. Of course, y'all know me. I'm a super nerd. Duh. So I get into digging into a lot of my classes, psychologically speaking. And after my studies and things, this is where it sort of led me to, hold on, y'all. Shoo! Ooh, shit. 8 stages of traumatic development. Okay? So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Are these 8 stages of traumatic development. And at any point in time, again, you guys, y'all are free to ask questions, comments, and concerns. Yeah, y'all know me. I had to take the notes and do the shits on the shits because, baby, after that doctor said that shit, I'm ready to go sue the VA and everybody else because technologically speaking, you cannot stereotypicalize me because you don't want to do your motherfucking job as a doctor. And you also cannot misdiagnose me because you having a bad ass day. And now I got some shit on my record that is irrelevant to anything that I've been through. Nor has he taken the correct approach to actually read any of the previous notes from the doctors. This is why I tell y'all, ain't nobody gonna help you, heal you, or do for you like you. So I know it's tedious. I know it's a lot of work, but please do your due diligence to cover your ass. Because trust me, they gonna make sure they cover their asses because their pockets are involved. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this. So before we do, everybody, I need everybody to go ahead and take a minute, take a deep breath in your nose, hold, and exhale. Inhale through your nose, hold, and exhale. And as we are talking about all of this, you guys, we will be getting into sexual abuse and trauma and hypersexuality and all of the other stuff too, okay? So again, you guys, like, share. I don't really do a lot of this often. I will be putting this specific chat or conversation on my YouTube so that you guys can go back and actually learn more in depth. But we just gonna sort of scratch the surface with these 8 stages real swift. But if you are on my YouTube page, I will be putting a more in-depth breakdown thesis of this trauma. So the first stage. Hold on, y'all. Let me readjust it myself. Got to readjust it myself. All right. And again, if you have children, this is something that you may also want to sort of think about with your children as well. So the first stage, stage 1 is infancy. This is the stage of where you learn trust versus mistrust. In your infancy stage or in the infancy stage, this is where a lot of care is being given and the being is allowed to assess how care is being given versus what needs are met versus those that are not met. So as a baby starting out, the first thing that a lot of us have noticed that babies do, they're going to cry. If there is something that is wrong, something that they need, something is off balance, they are going to cry. And a lot of times that crying is coming as a reciprocity statement of, hey, I'm in pain. What are you going to do about it? I'm hurt. What are you going to do about it? So if you know in your infancy stage or when you were growing up, you did not have the best parental relationship, if your parents were not, Daryl, get feeding. Never mind. Come here. Come here, mommy. Come here. Hey, big girl. I'm sorry, y'all. Phoenix just started crawling around the corner. Come here, mommy. So if you are in this first stage, or again, you realize that your parents were not giving you the attention, the care necessary, or anything of that nature, in that first stage of infancy, this is where that trust versus mistrust is developed. So at this age, they are already learning on what responses need to be responded to versus what you're not responding to. What needs are being met versus what needs aren't being met. So this also comes into play with a lot of neglect, or things that we feel are neglectful, or even things that we don't even believe are neglectful. Such as if you feel your child is crying or things of that nature, there's nothing wrong with allowing a baby to cry. But there is a problem when it's excessive and you're still not giving that attentive love, nurturing, and caring and care for that child. But that also comes into play if you were taught those skills. You cannot be a nurturer and care for a child if that is something that is not either, number one, naturally within you, or you've learned that habit from watching other people give that kind of care. So stage 1 in infancy is where they are learning to develop that trust versus that mistrust. They see somebody that is over or bigger than them. This is that place of safety for them. So, hey, can you help me? And a lot of times that is the same thing that we are also still living through. We will be in situations of trust versus mistrust, and we are always paying attention to how care is given. This trauma connection happens in the first stage of infancy. All right? That is your newborns. So this also comes into play where a lot of newborns and babies are having that disconnect of picking who they want versus who they don't want. They're already picking up on that energy. So you as a person, this is why we say babies are the best tellers of character. Babies are the best truth tellers of character, because either they're going to fuck with you or they not. It is literally in this stage right here. This is all about trust versus mistrust. Can they trust you? If they're falling over, are you going to catch them? If they have a boo-boo, are you going to be there? This right here, this stage, that infancy stage, is building that trust, or they are building the learning skill of mistrust. Where, I'm not going to trust them to do this. I'm not going to trust them. If I cry, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. So that's that first stage, okay? The second stage. The second stage. Daryl, come get her. You tinky. The second stage is toddlerhood. Toddlerhood is autonomy versus shame and doubt, or in other words, independence versus dependence. Okay, in their toddlerhood, this is where they're learning independence versus dependence. This comes into play with a lot of their responses, and you as an adult, a lot of your responses, a lot of the responses from your teenagers and their siblings as well. They are paying very much deep attention to this part. The next step is encouraging dependency. You become less dependent. So what that is encouraging them to do certain things on their own and letting them know that it's going to be okay to do so. And again, if we were toddlers raised in these situations and circumstances who sort of already were dropped off in phase 1 with the mistrust, now in phase 2, technically speaking, this is where a lot of us started getting dropped off at your mama friend house or her homeboy house or an auntie house. So now this learning of independence and dependence is being developed in an altered kind of way. This is also where encouraging dependency, they become less dependent on doing things and actions of themselves because other people may always be screaming, no, don't do this, don't do that. So it is ultimately setting off a trigger of mistrust and also teaching them shame and doubt. And this is just in the toddler phase of life. This also comes into play with less confident abilities in their adulthood years, as well as unnecessary attention and doubts that will manifest later on in life. Now, that part right there is what hit me hard. Because I do remember being a kid, I would sit there and make certain things up and be looking for attention and shit like that. And when I would get the attention, but it was not the attention I wanted, shit went left. Psychologically speaking, this is what they would call Munchausen syndrome. People who would inflict certain situations or false mentalities upon themselves because of the psychological trauma and physical trauma that they had been through and unable to process. So I actually had to sit down with myself for a good little minute and process that shit. What was really happening to me versus the shit that really was not happening to me. It was heavy. So you can only imagine certain things when a kid comes up and the kids are like, oh, mommy, I got a boo-boo, but there is no boo-boo there. Oh, mommy, I hurt myself, but they didn't do anything. This comes from their attention seeking of seeking independence and dependence, learning autonomy versus shame and doubt. Okay? So it's not for you to scream and be like, ain't nothing the fuck wrong with you. Go sit the fuck down. This is where you got to sort of reprogram that and be like, hey, I see you hurt. Okay, I'm going to kiss it, but there's nothing there. So you want my attention. So what do you want to do? Since you don't have a boo-boo, you want me to do something. What do you want to do? This is where now you are encouraging them from that shame into that independence of now they are exploring what they want to do and using a healthy way of displaying that. And you're also teaching them that trust and dependence because you are now listening to what they are saying and putting it into play. That is only stage 2 of your growth and development. Now, again, if you have already sort of fell off in stage 1 and your parents were not those people that were actually parental, stage 2 is your development, and they still did not give you that sort of one-on-one parental guidance, that growth, that learning, that teaching, and that development. Now we already sort of being mentally, physically, and spiritually sort of preemptified for certain things to happen to us. Okay? You okay, mommy? You okay? Okay. Stage 3. We are now in preschool. This is where our babies and ourselves were in pre-K. So a lot of you some of y'all can remember, some of y'all may not be able to. I know personally, yeah, I remember some of that shit from Elka and wherever else I was going, Brunswick and shit like that. This is their first introduction into society. This stage is called initiative versus guilt. Okay, initiative versus guilt. This is where they are becoming assertive and speaking up for themselves. Okay, this is when they are going to preschools and they are interacting with other kids and, oh, you took my bike, you did this, you did that. And a lot of the times, if these teachers are not capable to pay attention to their children, this is where a lot of the times in these preschools and in daycares, this is where we be seeing the fuck shit happen in these places. Because number one, these people technically are not certified to actually give psychological care and physiological care for these babies that may be going through a lot of these steps of trauma. So again, this comes from attention seeking because they have not had that dependency and that appropriate response. They have developed that mistrust. And now with them being in preschool, they're learning to speak and say certain things, but they may be being punished for acting out, which now develops a sense of guilt. Now, all of these different names that I'm naming off: mistrust, shame, doubt, guilt. Spiritually speaking, these are all demonic energetic presences, or aka these is demons. What, baby? You want what?
I love you.
I love you more. You want to come up here too?
Yeah.
Come on. Ah!
Mommy, I want to say hi.
No, we're not going to say hi right now. You say, like, go ahead and say hi.
Hi.
All right, you say hi. No more, okay?
Okay.
All right. Sorry, y'all. Go back, watch TV then.
Go back and watch TV.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, that's the cereal you dropped on the floor. Sorry, y'all. So again, stage 3, initiative versus guilt. And this is in preschool. The other thing with this development in life, alongside of them becoming assertive and speaking up for themselves, assertive is positive reinforcement, which is initiative plus helpful behavior, versus assertiveness plus negative reinforcements, which equals timid and less likely to lead. They're going to be less likely to speak up in certain situations and circumstances, such as being bullied at school, or not only being bullied at school, but being bullied at home, being bullied with family members. If certain people are telling them or misleading them because of that mistrust, that misguidance of dependency. This is where a lot of the time in the Black community, you may be sitting here leaving your baby with your uncle, and now your uncle is telling the baby, oh, well, don't you want to play a game? Which is suggestive, because that person already knows where their mentality is, but what they're going to do is allow the child that dependency, that independency, to choose what is going to happen while they are coercing them into those actions, okay? So again, that is stage 3 for preschoolers, which is, again, initiative versus guilt. This is where they are learning to either speak up for themselves and become assertive in who they are and what they want in their place and space, or they are taught with a negative reinforcement, which leaves them being timid, shy, not wanting to speak up, not wanting to be confrontational, which again comes into play when you're asking your baby what done happened to you, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to ask about it. Somewhere along their development already, stages 1, 2, or 3 have already been detrimentally averted. Meaning some bad shit done already happened within those first 3 stages of life, which have already started mentally processing their development in an alternative way. Stage 4, early childhood school. So now we are in elementary. We are elementary, my dear. Sorry, y'all. So now we are in elementary school, early childhood. This is the stage of industry versus inferiority. Industry versus inferiority. This is where they are now comparing of others and self. Comparing themselves to others, and you are comparing yourself to others as well, comparing them to you. If they feel accomplished with their peers, they develop strong sense of understanding of themselves. Vice versa, if they feel inferiority to their peers, they will become introverts, very distant, and this begins the psychological behavior again of trust versus mistrust, who they can depend on versus who they cannot depend on. This also comes with the inferiority complex of wants and needs. Okay, wants and needs. So for instance, if your baby is going to school, everybody else got the Jordans and shit like that, but your baby still wearing shoes and shit from Walmart. That developmentally plays an aspect on their growth and superiority and inferiority in schools. Now, where this comes into play in the industrial part is, again, they are now being compared amongst their peers as to where they compete, where they place, who's smart, who's cool, who's pretty, who's this, who's that. Now they are in industrial competition with themselves in a very, very early mental stage of development. Okay, y'all? And again, that is stage 4. That is stage 4. Sorry, y'all. Now, we are finna go into stage 5. Stage 5. Adolescence. Stage 5 of development and trauma with adolescents. This is where, again, they are going into the stages of identity versus role confusion. Identity versus role confusion. Thank you, Mommy. I love you too. You okay now? Yeah. Sorry, y'all. Ain't nobody talking to you. I said sorry to them. So again, now we are in stage 5, identity versus role confusion. This is again where in stage 5 of their development to trauma, they are now associating with identity crisis, because in the first stage of development, where that trust and mistrust was, their parents were not there to develop that bridge of trust to mistrust. Stage 2 is toddlerhood, autonomy versus shame and doubt versus their independence and dependence. If you are not able to give them that dependence or that leg to stand on to develop that in their toddlerhood, they now have this situation of inappropriate responses in their toddlerhood. Stage 3, preschool. This is initiative versus guilt. This is where they are learning to be assertive, and this is where they definitely need positive reinforcement here versus the negative reinforcement, which causes shyness, timid, and lack of communication amongst themselves and their peers. Now we move into stage 4, early childhood. Remember, that's industry versus inferiority. Now they in the school system and they seeing all of these different people doing all of this stuff. They done clicked up. And not only that, not only do they not fit in at school, but now they don't fit in at home either. So for those that are being abused on the traumatic side of this is all now also, as much as it is taking a psychological place, this is also taking a physical transformation on the body as well. This is where, again, you will start seeing development behavior issues. They will start isolating themselves. They will become argumentative. They will cause situations and circumstances. And again, y'all, I do not say this lightly because I've done all of this. I have used my own self as my psychological, spiritual research on this shit. Because at one point, I had to sit in my own goddamn crossroads, and I was like, self, and myself said, and then my third self said, bitch, we crazier than a fruitcake at Christmas. We got to fix this shit. Because if we ever have kids, honey, we don't have enough bail money for what this child is going to do. We got to fix this. So as much as everybody else be feeling so attacked by the developments of what I learn and what I teach and what I speak on, how the fuck y'all think I feel? And I be learning this shit and reading the shit, and then the shit be hitting me like, boop, and I'm like, I fucked up some commas. Yeah. I fucked up some commas. Fuck! I fucked up some commas, yeah. 100,000 on 100,000. 10,000 on 10,000.
Mommy, I want to play my toys.
You can go in your room and play with your toys, big girl. That's a good choice. See? There you go. Just like that. Mommy, I want to go in the room and play with my toys. You can go in your room and play with your toys. That's a great choice. No, y'all, but for real. But that's the thing. You got to be at that mindset to be like, ooh, I did that. So now we done went through the first 4 stages where they've ultimately had that alternative mental programming. And now we are in that 5th stage of their adolescence. And this is where their identity crisis is kicking in. They are developing a sense of self. Those that know who they are and have a strong goals and self-acknowledgement and self-knowledge than those who are breaking free. These people who are wrote in confusion or being told what to do. So those are the 2 opposite sides of stage 5 in adolescence. Identity versus role confusion. Identity, knowing who they are, knowing what they stand for, knowing what they will go for, what they won't fall for, versus that role confusion of pretty much submitting and being told what to do because they actually don't have that independence or that reliability of trust within themselves. These are all processes that were not really given function to fully develop before time. Now, moving on from stage 5 into stage 6, okay? Now, keep this in mind, y'all. These are all of the programmings that come into your development from stages 1 through 8. And now we finna hit stage 6, okay? Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Stage 6. Oh, snap. Now we in young adulthood. Middle school. Not middle school, I'm sorry. We in young adulthood, which is, again, your 20s. Now, during this part of your life, now I know I'm starting to creep up on some of y'all because I done said in your 20s. And they like, what you mean? So yes, stage 6 in your developmental process of young adulthood. This is where you are learning in your 20s intimacy versus isolation. Intimacy versus isolation. This is where in stage 6 of your development, this is where you learn to solidify long-term bonds, friendships, and marriages. Ooh, I think I might need to roll a blunt up on this one because this the stage here. That stage 6 is where everybody get fucked up. That stage 6, that young adulthood, where you learning intimacy versus isolation and you trying to solidify your life bonds versus your isolation, which equals instability in emotional process and emotional thinking, and also unstable emotional dependency and capabilities. Now you are creating codependency because stages 1 through 5 sort of got fucked to the wind growing up. So now we're trying to compensate for the first 5 stages in stage 6 with intimacy and isolation. This is also where a lot of people are unable to keep friends or keep relationships. You will cause traumatic situations to sort of victimize yourself or your situation to become true. All because of those lack of processes and development from stages 1 through 5. This is also where if your parents did not teach you or you were not privy to learn a deeper term for love and intimacy of self, this is going to be a hard stage of your life where you will ultimately end up in isolation because you have lack of trust, lack of dependence, lack of self-knowledge of self, period. So again, that's just stage 6. So in your 20s, this is where we go from nowhere to now, here looking for love in all the wrong places, saying, oh my God, I love this person. Amen. But some of y'all in y'all 20s talking about, ooh, I can't wait to get married. I can't wait to get married. I was y'all at one point. I was y'all for real, for real. Check this out. Bang, bang. I got married early in my 20s. I think I had turned 21 in the military, right? By the time I hit the age I am now, I have been married 5 times. Okay? 5 times I've been married. And literally when I had got to this point where I am now in my spiritual journey of learning to sit my ass down and really process my own shit, I was like, I fucked up big commas. In my stage 6 of my life, I fucked up big commas. Because not only was I dragging people through my shit, I was dragging my kid, through my shit. Because I didn't even know what the fuck was going on. Didn't nobody teach me this shit. I don't know what a date is. I ain't never been on a date. In my 20s, I ain't never been on a date. So how in the hell could I have expected a decent relationship going from domestic abuse, mental abuse, into being married and putting a demand on somebody else that physically I had never seen in life? So that was where my mental trauma had came into play, of inflicting that shit onto everybody else, but also realizing I was attracting the same goddamn shit. How did I attract all the same damn shit? Let me break it down for y'all. Here we go. The first marriage. That was my brat phase because of my codependency and being a child and not being told no. I had found somebody that didn't know what the word no was. I ran that nigga pockets. I ran the pockets bad to the point I took me and my sister on the shopping spree from the computer. And he wasn't even in the country. I did that. And I had to eat that shit. My second marriage, I decided to go marry a white woman. I married a white woman to rebel against the fact that my parents couldn't accept the fact that I liked who I liked. I was in elementary school kissing girls, bitch. Don't talk about, oh, you're just going through a process. I done been smelling pussy. I mean, it is what it is. I've always liked that. That just is what it is. Yeah, dudes are fine. They're all dandy and cool. They make that little meat thing stand up. But as far as a real connection, nah, man, I wasn't with it. Because at the early development stages in my life, stages 1 through 6, I had already been molested, raped, and traumatized. So jumping onto another man was not in my agenda. So I decided I was going to go to a woman. And being with that woman ultimately triggered me into the mental relapse of when I was a kid in kindergarten, and my cousin would force me to eat her pussy at nap time, or she was going to cut my hair and tell everybody on me. Therefore, taking away my dependence and my assertiveness of myself. Okay? Y'all stay with me now. Marriage number 3. Hold on. Yeah, marriage number 3. Marriage number 3. Oh, and for y'all who don't know, my first husband is Jamaican because I had a real mental adjustment problem with black men. I had been raised by black men. I had dated black men. But as far as being serious with one and devoting my life to one, who? In who Jesus' name? In your white Jesus' name? No, I don't believe in the God of my oppressors. You ain't finna oppress me with that bullshit. Nah. Nah. So yeah, my first husband was Jamaican. My second marriage was a white woman. My third one was a Puerto Rican with an identity complex, with an identity crisis. Why do I say my third marriage had an identity crisis? Because clearly this was a black man who had a black mother and a Puerto Rican father and chose to identify with his Puerto Rican heritage. Therefore, related to me that he did not like me as a black woman because I reminded him of his mother. Versus the fact I was just a cool ass person to hang out with and he didn't want nobody else fucking with me. Boy, if that wasn't my own selfish tendency smacking me in the face. So yeah, I had to learn that one. I had to eat it. My fourth marriage, I decided to go ahead and marry a black woman. And when I sit here and tell my black men on here, hey man, I say it. Because some of these little tinks out here got more little tink going on. Like, bitch, you need to calm down. I don't know what you done been through. No, I know what you done been through. I don't know what you refusing to acknowledge. But we gonna need to acknowledge this together. And when I married my wife, my second wife now, I done married 2 men and 2 women at this point. When I married my second wife, that was literally me looking for that dependency of protection and feminine energy. I was still doing a whole bunch of this fuck shit. Still trauma bonding, still doing all of this. And at no point in time did I register the physical part of how it was taking a toll on me. Which leads me to stage 7, okay? Stage 7, middle adulthood. Your middle adulthood and your stage 7 is where you are now learning generosity versus stagnation. This is where your contributions to society actually play a role in the difference in who you are and what you want to be seen as a person. Hold on. Oh yeah. This is where you generate in the sense of leaving a legacy. This is where you feel like you have to have something left behind, something with your name. You don't want to be forgotten. You don't want to be displaced. This is where people are finally starting to take that, what do you contribute to your society role, seriously. How do you contribute to the world? What do you contribute to the world? Me personally, I am a sexual abuse therapist and a spiritual parapsychologist. That is my contribution to this world. So that is where in stage 7, a lot of people are trying to figure out what is their contribution? What do they do? And if they have nothing to give, this is where the downside of it, which is stagnation, the need to create or nurture things that will last. You know you want to do something, you know you want to get out there, but you don't know how or where because, again, stages 1 through 6 were not developed in a healthy way so that you could be successful in stage 7, which is your middle adulthood. This is, again, in your 50s, your 40s and 50s, your 30s, 40s, and 50s. This is your middle adulthood. Last but not least, stage 8. Stage 8 is integrity versus despair. Integrity versus despair. This is, again, where you are now your 65 until death. This is where mentally you are now putting into the practice that I will be a better person, or I will try to be a better person because of all the conflicts that you have been through stages 1 through 7. Stage 8, you already have come to terms that you are on your way out. You finna exit stage left. You don't want nothing but peace, peace, and peace. Whether it's with other people, which is to uplift the integrity of who you are as a person, or you are living in your despair because of the lack of goals that you choose to accomplish throughout your life and development. So, now that we done broke down all 8 of them stages of development in your life, now we have to go back and add a lot of the real historical truth to what was just said. This is where, again, a lot of people want to scream about leaving certain situations such as slavery in the past. But if you've been raised in the slave mentality, we just read that psychologically speaking, you have to be reared out of that slave mentality, meaning something has to change. You have to be given some kind of dependence, assertiveness, or some kind of place, space, and voice for a lot of those mentalities to change. We as a people have not come to that place of changing it yet. Because as much as we want to scream, oh, slavery was in the past, all of that shit is in the past, this, that, and the third is in the past. When you was raped, that was in the past. When you was abused, that was in the past. Well, in the past, all of that came from Massa and his blood. All of that shit came from Massa and his people, what he was doing on the plantation. And since he chose to live in that energy, he would buck break and rape our ancestors that would still harbor that trauma and pass it down through the blood. Which is why a lot of us now are dealing with so much neglect, murder, decay, and ultimately sexual abuse and rape. Because these are all genetic occurrences that have had more than enough time to develop in your body. So a lot of the times, and I hate to say this, when people be like, oh, I was born this way. Technically speaking, sweetheart, if you've had any kind of misdirection in those first 1 to 3 stages of life, no, you were not born that way. Your body chemically went through a trauma and it chemically reacted to the process. So if you've been raped and molested from a newborn to the age of 5 by more men than women, then genetically your composition is going to start to like men, because that is genetically what you have been developed into without guidance. There has not been trauma therapy to process your independence or your assertiveness, because again, you were a toddler, you were a baby or a child when any of this was originally occurring. So therefore, you being able to speak up for yourself or any of that, or which is that main stage, that very first stage, developing trust, that was already gone. That was already gone at an early age. So instead of finding ways in people to trust, we've found ways to develop and manipulate trust. You're welcome, baby. We've found ways to manipulate certain situations because of how we've developed. And if you've experienced sexual trauma at an early age, then you have no control over how your body will respond chemically to that new development. You will have no control over how your body responds to that trauma. Your body will respond to trauma how all of your genetic ancestors responded to the exact same trauma. This is again why we have certain people that won't speak up, won't say things, or will act out in a certain way. Or vice versa. Those who have started their own developmental process because spirit has allowed you to be privy to the fuck shit, just to be the person to tear the fuck shit down. You have been privy to a lot of sexual abuse and molestation, and maybe you have even done and reacted the acts that were done to you. Rule number 1, forgive yourself as a child, repeating the learned behavior and developmental process that was taught to you and was not structured. Does that make you a rapist, a pedophile, or any of that shit? And that phase of your development? No. You are displaying a learned behavior that nobody else decided to correct, which is also why R. Kelly was a big issue. And everyone is screaming, oh, he need to be in jail. He need to be in this. He need to be in that. Me personally, I want to talk to him one-on-one and sit with him, because for 30 years, we had a whole black community watch this man get raped and sodomized and everything else. He told his story. He told his truth. And what did we do? Nothing. The same way we see certain responses in our children that aren't normal. But because genetically we've been through that situation and circumstance and we believe we know the outcome of that process, what do? Nothing. Some of y'all got kids in y'all houses right now that you don't know has been molested by their siblings. They've been beat on by their siblings. They've been touched on by their siblings. But you won't know that because of the things that you have been through and experienced, and you're playing it off, or what I like to call you gaslighting yourself. See, I learned that too with me having ADHD, we'll gaslight ourselves, tell us, oh my God, this is what it is. No, it's not. Stop tripping. When I know for a fact, I see what the fuck it is, but I done gaslighted myself to believe that the shit ain't is what I know it is. Yeah. Gotta learn from that shit. It's a developmental process of when I tell you, get out your own fucking way. It amazes me how some of y'all be sounding like hit dogs hollering when literally I get on the live talking to myself. I get on here talking to me. I don't see none of y'all faces. Hell, I don't even see none of y'all comments unless I swipe over and see the whole list of comments. I literally be on here just talking to myself. And if people agree with the conversation or it resonates, great. But at the end of the day, I have to know myself, for myself, by myself, with myself to be self-sufficient. And this is a community that I'm gonna be self-sufficient in. So I'm gonna make it known not just for me, but for everybody around me too. Some of y'all kids done had other childlike conversations of development of their dependence, and it done made bet that yeah, some of y'all not as clean as you think you are. Some of y'all are not walking on the grace and mercy that you portray. And it comes out in your kids. Because your kids are now living the detriments of what you've dragged them through. What you mean drag them through? If you are an adult or you had a child at an early age, you have now perpetuated those generational curses plus some to your kids by dragging them through an unjust hell that was technically yours to go through, not them. So the fact that you chose to go be with Day Day after spirits and them done told you to leave that nigga alone and he done beat your ass, now your children done been through that same traumatic experience too of being stuck in the sense of, if I don't do as I'm told to do, now I'm gonna get beat. Which again affects those stages of development that we just went through. So for anybody to sit here and be like, oh my God, I feel so attacked. Jump in line. I felt attacked first because I had to learn this about myself, for myself, by myself, with myself, and realize that I drug my child through an unjust hell that she didn't deserve, bro. I drug her through shit she didn't deserve. And not only that, I drug people through situations mentally they didn't deserve because I didn't understand myself. I did not understand who and what I was going through. So I drug people through shit and called it love. Called it marriage. Called it relationships. Called it, oh, you don't want to support me. Stop. Because that was also me learning self-sabotaging behaviors to get what I wanted, not what I needed. And in the end, I got more than that. So, when it comes to realizing that a lot of our babies, or even you, may not have had that voice to speak for yourself and be on your own platform of truth, this is where, again, at stage 6, we start developing that hyper sense of sexuality because of the previous trauma that has occurred from stages 1 through 5. So if you've been touched on at an early age, between the ages of 1 through 10, your body physically has already developed or start developing and transmuting into womanhood or manhood before your physical body outside has caught up. Okay? What that means is something or traumatic occurrence has led you to a chemical reaction of your brain and of your body. Okay? And now you are developing in that energy in a negative way. So if you've been molested, touched on, or anything at an early age, this is why we have so many young girls very hypersexual. And this is why a lot of these girls look older than what they are. Daryl, here, their body chemistry has already been through that catalyst at an early age, from child to womanhood at 3 years old, because they've been molested and touched on early. Their bodies have already gone through that spontaneous change chemically, because you dropped your son off at your homegirl house and your homegirl daughter had been molested. So she's starting to teach him these little play along games and she's sucking on his pee-pee now. Yeah. Early trauma. Early trauma. And if you are not careful to take note of what happens in your own bloodline, in your family, you won't realize that a lot of the sexual abuse, the rape, molestation, and all of that shit, that goes back through not only what your family lineage was doing, but what they had forced onto them. You see a lot of hypersexual activity from those that were born from buck breaking, or they were on stables. They were on stable plantations. They were literally there to reprocreate. They were sex slaves. So eventually, over the years, this is where you will see some of those traits start to mutate, where it's not so heavy or so dominant, but they are displayed in other ways. Just like people with self-sabotaging behavior, we may call it self-sabotage. If you go to the doctor, they're going to tell your ass you got Munchausen's. We call it sadness and going through a bad bout of some shit. They'll call it depression and suicidal tendencies because they don't understand the traumatic events that led you to where you are. You will literally have people discrediting you because they do not know the traumatic events that led you up in your development to where you are. Same thing with R. Kelly. At no point in time did anybody take real accountability of the traumatic events that was happening to that man before he started getting to everybody else. So again, for those people that sit there and be like, oh, you can't help nobody to deal with sexual abuse and hypersexuality. Yes, you can. I got over it. I got over it to the point now, I don't really like people touching me. If I allow you to touch me, you have to have some kind of great trust. You have to have some kind of great respect for me. Or I have to have some kind of level of submission within myself to realize that this is an issue that I have and I have to overcome it. So I'm not going to let whatever happened in the past hinder me from what's coming for me in the present, which leads me to my 5th marriage. Yeah, I know somebody was like, I thought she said she's married 5 times. We only done went over 4. This last one leads me to my 5th marriage, which was, again, me facing one of my biggest fears, being married to a black man. After I had already made the decision that I done been with black men and a black man ain't got nothing good for me. I done seen that shit. I done worked with that shit. Hell, I was raised by black men, not women. I mean, my mama was around. Don't get me wrong. She was around. But the people that raised me was a bunch of black men. My grandfathers, my uncles, my cousins. Them was the people that raised me. My mom was too busy dealing with her own trauma of self-love and abuse. She could not help me the way that I needed. So ultimately, I was left to the wolves. And I don't mean the kind on the cartoons either. I mean the ones that they don't even write posts on about the internet because it's still whispered about in the streets. That's what I'm talking about. I was raised by some real wolves. And ultimately, when I got to that point in development in my life, I jumped out there with some real wolves. Don't get me wrong, the big bad wolf caught me. He got me straight. I appreciate him every day of my life. But man, Had I could averted or avoided any of the trauma, pain, and situations that came with this developmental process, I would have. And now that I know this now, I'm able to divert a lot of the trauma that goes with my daughter because of what she's seen, because of what she's been privileged to, so that she does not develop the same complex of, oh, don't fuck with black men the same way I did. I had to overcome that complex. And how did I do it? I married one. I decided to become married to my biggest fear. Because how else was me personally going to work through a generational trauma that deep? To the point where generationally, I've seen the men take care and the women be so broken that there is no care. There is no maternal instinct. There is no, oh, baby, you fell. Let me kiss your boo-boo. Hell no. I wasn't raised by women like that. Baby. No. The person that was kissing boo-boos for me was my uncle. And unfortunately, on the other side of the family, I had another uncle who was kissing boo-boos the wrong way. So again, I had to really sit with myself and be by myself for a good little minute. Did I have a couple of come and goes? Of course I had a couple of come and goes. I had a couple of come and stops too. I had all of that shit. But it wasn't until I was okay with sitting with myself and my shit and going back through the list of people that I had married and been like, I'm sorry I married your ass. And it's not for the reason that you think. It wasn't that you was bad, because we were bad. But I needed to apologize for the fucked up shit I did on my end that I was aware of, and the shit I wasn't even aware that I did to you. I had to literally go back and listen to the trauma I had passed on to other people and eat that shit. To the point these people still reach out to me from time to time. Just to make sure we on good standings. Because I had to grow up. I had to realize that shit. So when people are putting labels and tabs and shit on you, number one, if it ain't in black and white, it ain't happen. This is why, number two, you always cover your own ass. Number three, hold yourself accountable and responsible, because there are always eyes watching. And they may get themselves into some shit that wasn't so easy to get out of when you got into it. That does happen. This also comes into play with them learning and experimenting and touching themselves at an early age. You don't deter them from that, but you make sure it's in a healthy environment to where they're not being interrupted. Sort of like the first time I caught my daughter on Pornhub, Lord have mercy. I ain't had words. I ain't had words. But I also had a flashback of a situation to when I was a kid. What happened to me in that situation with my parents? My mom and them didn't talk to me about sex. I remember being in high school and still being bullied because I didn't know what a penis looked like. So when it came to my daughter and I saw that she was afraid, I immediately had to change my response to, it's okay to explore yourself with yourself, by yourself, for yourself, as long as you are exploring yourself with yourself, for yourself, and by yourself. To know yourself first before you leave that dependency of everybody else to know you better than you. Know you better than everybody else believe that you know you. Of course, everybody gonna want to, ooh, let me try. Know you before you allow everybody else to know you, baby. It may be an uncomfortable situation, and I get it. But I'd rather you do it at home than you be doing it out here in the streets and they showing you the fucked off way to get you real fast from nowhere to now here versus you just missing all of that all together. That's how I ended up breaking that generational curse of sexual abuse and trauma. Because she has a better understanding. I don't pressure her about whether she like a little boy, a little girl, whatever she develops into on her own. That's how that developmental process actually works. Giving them that dependency and that safe place and space to develop without feeling like they're going to be reprimanded or repercussions in a negative way. And a lot of y'all need to start doing that with y'all selves. This is why y'all situations and relationships and shit are turning into situationships, or like I like to call them, past events. I had a lot of past events. My current event right now, he's somewhere in the living room. He's somewhere now. But I've had a lot of past events. That is what I equate them to. Lord, my moco done wiped all the way off. I done talked and rubbed my face so much. Oh well. So again, you guys, does anybody have any questions or anything? It's only 10 of us on here, so it's cool. Y'all got questions about anything that we talked about today? I really would like a lot of y'all to start getting comfortable with talking to your children. And also being real with yourself. If your kid is at that point where they done finally started having body hair and shit, you might want to reintroduce yourself to Lil Tink Tink, because Lil Tink Tink ain't your little baby no more. That's not no baby no more. You might want to go find out who in your room playing video games. You might want to take them on a couple of lunch dates, figure their likes and their dislikes. You might want to have a good heart-to-heart and understanding with them. And the reason that we say understanding is because you want that person to understand exactly how you feel. You want to have a connection of communication on that level. You don't understand anybody else because you're not beneath their level of thinking. You're not beneath anybody. So again, life and death is in the power of the tongue. Learn what your words actually mean. Just like for a minute, a bunch of people was on here talking about some chow. Do y'all realize y'all are literally calling yourselves Italian slaves? Okay, cool, whatever. Go with it, bro. That's all you, boo. All you. So, if nobody has any comments, questions, or concerns, I am open for consultations again. If you guys are joining the retreat and you have not contacted me, you might want to get on the ball to do that. Because the last day for the first day's deposits was yesterday. I am extending it today for those that need extra time to communicate. Closed mouths don't get fed in this house. So with that being said, I will see you guys at the homecoming. If anybody else have any comments, questions, or concerns, I am always available. I am open for consultations. If you're not about fixing your shit and being for real, don't call me, because I'm not going to sit up and buddy powwow with you. We here to get some resolution and some understanding, because we got some real shit coming we got to deal with. So y'all know my motto. Namaste, everybody. But no, I'm going to stay the fuck over here. Holla.